All right, so this is a Lakeside Jumbo. Again, I mean, it's really pretty. You can see the wood through the finish on the back. You're not really going to see it probably in the camera, but it has a really nice finish. It has some pretty double binding on it. The back of the neck, it has a nice kind of two-tone thing going. I really like these old style tuners, those open back tuners. And they're good. I don't know what the ratio is. I don't know anything about that stuff. But what I do know is it tunes really well. So I just want to play through a little bit of some things maybe you've heard similar to what I'm going to do. I make no claims about my guitar playing. But again, the idea of this is if you're going to buy this from me online, it'd be nice for you to see it a little more than just a couple of still photos and to hear it a little bit. So when I was thinking about getting this guitar, I was in the process of selling a Taylor that I had, which is an auditorium. I ended up trading for a Guild D55 because I was looking for a little deeper sound, more jumbo or dreadnought. I ended up getting the Guild, which is the only reason why I'm getting, moving this one on. Is the Guild is just a higher end guitar. This was probably 800 new. It does have a nice solid top on it. So it is going to continue to age well. The bridge is perfect. No issues with that. And that's the only thing I see with some of these guitars used. You can buy them online and they'll have a little belly. And this is something to think about. Leaving your guitar tuned in the case, probably detune it a little bit, take some of the pressure off the bridge, and get those to Dario Humidipacks and keep them in your guitar case with your guitar. And that'll extend the life of the guitar. It's wood, so you don't want to run into issues. I have a really nice Maya guitar, which my stepson is going to buy. I like looking for guitars. I like playing them. I don't need to own them all forever. So my idea is to get them in the hands of the rightful owner. Is my concept. Is I find them, I'll play them, because I'm curious, and then when I sell them, you'll have an idea of what it is you're buying other than still photos or something over the internet about some guitar that may or may not be the same guitar. So let's just do some chords you'll recognize, the E, and we'll go through like my version of Melissa that I learned from Marty. No offense to Marty for my playing. My big old cat is roaming around. Everybody else is sleeping, so he's messing with me right now. What else do we want to play? Maybe we'll go to drop D. Dude, get down from there. Come on. Come on, get down. Goodbye. Goodbye. We got a plastic plant. He's in need of eating grass, apparently. And he keeps on going after that plastic plant, which is probably not good for him. I have the guitar tuner going, but the cat is really distracting me right now. Hopefully somebody in the house gets up. Get out of here. He's like a bad comedy routine. Luckily he doesn't get offended when I have to remove him from places that he shouldn't be. It is funny having him around. He is a good cat. It's kind of chilly down here in the basement, but let's just take you through some standard chords, cowboy chords. E, G, C add 9. Cover up that E string. D, A. So we're just like a 3-chord strummer. So the funny thing about acoustic guitars and buying ones that are of good enough quality is I watched a video by a guy, I remember his name, Paul Davids. He's a phenomenal guitar player. He was trying to prove how this $50 cheapest guitar over Amazon compares to a $50,000 Martin. And of course they don't compare, but the guy is such a good musician. And in spite of the poor setup and intonation problems and everything else, he played such a beautiful and complex piece that you're like, wow, that piece doesn't really sound that bad. And in the hands of a professional player, they can take a box of strings and make it sound okay. And they were selling guitar box guitars in Asbury Park. You know, this is, you think about the Ovation guitars with their plastic back and the top. The problem with his video is because he is so good, it might give somebody the impression that a beginner could play that guitar with any success, and they probably can't. So the action on the guitar is so important. Like if this is a beginner watching this video, and I'm cold, it's in the morning, it's like 8 o'clock. I've been up for a little while setting up my YouTube channel. It's my first video and my first guitar playing in the morning. But think about when somebody says the action, that's the height of the strings over the fretboard. And what you'll see with some of these vintage guitars is the action will be good through like the first 5, maybe 7 frets. And then it'll get really high down here. So, and that's sometimes issues with the bridge where it's kind of dried out and the constant pulling of the strings, which is a lot of pressure and tension on the guitar, starts to lift it from the back. So it starts to do one of these deals where it starts to pull the back of the guitar. That's why it's probably a good idea I'm going to start doing it myself. Because I've never had a guitar with that issue, but I've bought a couple guitars that are now from the 70s. Part of my channel is, vintage guitar hunting. Looking at primarily at the Japanese-made guitars because they were knocking off Martin at the time. And I don't have enough money right now to really be a Martin guitar hunter. But the concept there is to find really good guitars that are more reasonably priced because of their age, or they don't have the badge recognition that Martin and Taylor and Guild and some of the other specialty makers would have. Gibson. I have my son's Gibson. I'm going to bring it down. It'll be on my channel. And the difference between a truly vintage guitar like the Gibson Hummingbird that he has from 1967 and just some old guitars that were kind of low-end guitars for their time. But some of them are actually well-made and can play and can stay in tune, and the action's not horrible. So for somebody looking for an inexpensive guitar because they're not sure if they're going to play, you still want to have a guitar that's playable. And And what I mean by that is it'll stay in tune, and the farther intonation just means that an E up at the top of the neck is an E down at the bottom of the neck, and the farther it gets away from that concert tuning of E, A, B, D, G, E, whatever it is, you know, the farther it gets away from its tuning, the more dissonant the sounds are going to be when you get farther down the neck, if you're somebody who's going to play farther down the neck. And probably if you're a beginner and you want to play more rock songs, and maybe you'll end up just buying an electric guitar. The strings are not as tight. You don't really need to have such hard calloused fingers playing electric, because it's just not as hard to hold down the strings against the fretboard of the guitar. All right, so that's this Washburn Lakeside, and I think it's a really, really nice value. I like the tuning machines. I think it's very well appointed. It's really pretty. It sounds good. I mean, it's a nice sounding guitar. You can play lots of different styles. Right now it has a nickel string on it, which is a little more dark. If you wanted a little brighter sound, then you would put on a different set of strings, like an Elixir or D'Addario, Phosphor Bronze. It's going to be a little brighter. This is intentionally like an older set, you know, gives you more of a vintage sound with these nickel wound strings. But it's a good guitar. It's going to be a good value. Anything under 500, I think new, there were probably 800. I saw one on Reverb that was still selling for 800. This one is going to sell probably south of 500. But you're going to get a solid top guitar. It's a really nice guitar. It has a lot of volume, where some of your laminate back and side guitars that are a little smaller aren't going to carry as much bass. I think that's where the size of this guitar does lend itself to good bass response and an overall nice sound profile that maybe other smaller body guitars you wouldn't find. They'd sound kind of thin, and they're not going to be as satisfying if you listen to most rock songs. Are going to have more bass, and in the background you have a bass player and other instruments, the drums and stuff. So when you're playing it, a guitar like this is going to give you really good feedback for your guitar playing, where a cheaper guitar or a new cheap guitar, which you would probably sell for the same money as this one, this was originally $800 because it has a solid top and it's a well-made guitar, where if you're trying to buy one new and it sells for the same price, it's not going to be as nice as this one. That's the benefit of buying a used guitar in most cases. It's like buying a used Mercedes. You drive the Mercedes off the lot and now it's worth $10,000 less. 10 years after somebody else bought it, you can buy it for a fraction of the price, but it's still a Mercedes. It might not be in as good a condition as the person who bought it, and you may end up needing to fix it eventually, but it's a Mercedes-Benz. Like, this has no issues at all with the guitar. No structural issues, no tuning issues. The action is pretty good. I mean, if you wanted to lower the action, maybe you would, I don't know, maybe you could take a little bit of a truss rod adjustment, but it's going to change because of the environmental conditions. It's the winter time. Not quite yet. It's December 10th or 11th right now, and I'm in the basement, so it's not really affected by the humidity, because it is, I mean, as far as being dry in the rest of the house with the forced hot air, there's no heating in the basement, right? It goes, all the ductwork goes up to the house. So I'm going to have other guitars on my channel that you can kind of compare this to. One of the next guitars I'm going to put up is a full solid body Epiphone Masterworks guitar, and it's the AJ500, which is an advanced jumbo. So it's going to be a similar body size to this, but it's going to be all solid woods. I would say that one, the action may be a little bit better down here from like the 10th fret on. It may be just a little bit lower than this guitar, but that was played by, I'm going to call him a professional musician. It was nobody that was well known. The guy had his own studio and he played in bands. So if you're making money at it, then I consider you a professional. So the setup was really good. Every guitar that I bought from a guy that played in gigs, played with bands, those guitars all come in really beautifully set up. So if you're looking for a used guitar and the guy's got a lot of guitars in the background, maybe not a bad guitar to look at because it's probably set up properly. And that's a big deal, especially for a beginner, to make sure if the guitar is set up properly, it's going to be easier to play and it's going to give you better feedback for what you're doing, because you could get on a crap guitar, that $50 guitar that Paul David's played, and it'll never sound good for you. And you'll be discouraged by how crappy that guitar is. That even if you're doing it right and you have your E chord properly held down, it's never going to sound right, because the strings themselves, they're going to have a hard time staying in tune. As you move farther down the neck, that intonation, which means again that the strings are in tune with what they're supposed to be. So when you're playing, any kind of a bar chord farther down the neck, and you're supposed to be playing an E or a G or some other variation of sharps or minors, if it's not properly intonated, you could be doing it right and it's just not going to sound right. So buy a better guitar. Spend the $250 or more to get something that has a solid top and that was well made and that has a good action and structurally sound. It was an $800 guitar when it was brand new versus buying something that is $200 brand new. You're getting down to the bottom of not as good of materials. It's a lot. It's still the same, not quite the same amount of time involved, but you think about it, they still need to have attaching the neck to the body. They still need to do some kind of finish treatment. They're still going to have to put frets on the, like there's a lot of work that goes into the guitar that's just similar between guitars, but when you're spending more money, you're getting a guitar that has better materials and more care in the manufacturing, which is going to lead to you having a better playing experience, and ultimately, if you're a beginner, it could be the determining factor to whether or not you stay with it. So buy a better guitar or borrow one until you can afford a better guitar. All right. Washburn, I'll have the, this is the LSJ743, I believe that's a 3. My eyes work, it could be 48, SK. Number 9 of 500. So it was a limited run.